Hello guys, and welcome back to this another video of Angular 2 series for absolute beginners. And guys, in our last video we saw how we can make use of events to pass data from our HTML templates to our component classes. And in one of our earlier videos we saw how we can make use of interpreters to bind data to our various tags. So guys, this way of binding the data to the text works only with only with the HTML elements wherein the data is bounded between the opening and closing tags. So this will work with tags like paragraph tags, span tags, div tags, and all the tags which bind data between the opening and the closing tags. But guys, how can we bind data to something like input elements or the text area elements? Basically, inside an input element, the data is bounded to this value property which the input element have. So it's not bound to something between input opening and closing tags. Basically, we don't even have a closing tag for our input element. So how do we bind data for such HTML elements? Basically guys, here comes the uses of binding to the properties. So we are going to see in this video how we can bind data to various properties of input element or any other HTML element for that matter. So guys, let me create a value property and give it something like say initial, right? So this initial text gets bound to the input element. So this is something I have hard coded here for now. What if I want my data to arrive from my class and get bound to this input element? Right here I have this property on my class that's called property data, and it contains this Angular property string. Now I want this particular string to get bound to my input element on screen. So what I need to do is I need to write this property here. Sorry for that, I copied something else. Okay, I need to copy this property data and use it here. And also I need to wrap this property name in the square brackets. So this is how data binding to property is done. Whichever property of any element you want your data to be bound to, you take that property, you wrap it inside a set of square brackets. Remember, these are square brackets, these are not curly braces like here we have, and these are not parentheses like here we have. These are square brackets. So we want to wrap that property name inside a square bracket, and then we want to provide that particular class property, and the data gets bound. So let's quickly see how it looks like. So basically we are getting now this Angular property from our class property, right, from our class component. Basically, if you this can be done to any properties, not just the value property. Any property of HTML element can be bound in this manner. But don't forget these square brackets, because when you miss these square brackets, the value to the right of this string, basically this string is not then evaluated. This is used absolutely as it is. So in this case, since I have omitted the square bracket, I'll be seeing this property data as such. This is not basically getting evaluated. In order to evaluate it, in order to use it from your class, you need to wrap them inside these square brackets. So guys, this is something called data binding to property, but there are something called attributes in HTML as well. So when we need to bind our data to the attributes of a particular HTML element, we can do it in a similar manner, but only by affixing, or sorry, only by prefixing the attr keyword to it. So if I want to bind my data to some attribute, let's call I want to bind this data to my id attribute, right? So we know every input element has id attribute. So if I want my data to be bound to this id attribute, this can be done using this attr.id, right? So let's quickly check if the id attribute of this input tag contains the data, and you can see that the id field now contains this particular string Angular property. So basically there is a subtle difference between properties and attribute in HTML. Every input element or every HTML element for that matter has both properties and attributes. But guys, there is a difference between a property and attribute. So basically, if you write something inside your input element, this gets bound to the value property, but not to the value attribute. Your value attribute still contains uh, the initial value that was defined as an attribute, whereas your value property changes as and when you type in your input element. So basically, if you want to have a more clear understanding of what is the difference between attributes and properties in an element, I have already done a video for that. I'll share the link at the end of this video, and you might want to have a look at that. So basically guys, this was all for this video. I just wanted you to show how can we bind to the attributes and properties in HTML using Angular. Thank you guys, that's all, and I will see you in the next one.